As Spain developed its empire, it controlled most of North America through the 16th century. They tended to treat Native Americans very poorly, initially pillaging their villages, taking whatever they wanted. Eventually, they developed a system of enslavement, forcing Native Americans to work in the mines and the plantations. Eventually, they realized that the Native Americans were not very useful as slaves, although that comes later. Initially, the Spanish were creating this large empire not so much because they wanted colonies, but because they wanted buffer states. They were nervous about the French traders in North America. They were worried about Russian seal hunters in the west, the English coming from the east. So they were looking for a buffer zone. In order to manage this system, they transferred an old system known as the Encomienda onto North America. Essentially, the army officers got huge chunks of land, and in exchange for protecting the Native Americans, the officers could force them to work and provide either goods or labor, typically in the mines or on the plantations. This leads to a very strict hierarchy system. Interestingly, the fact that there was only mostly men in the New Spain initially, there was a lot of intermarriage, which leads to other issues later on. Along with the military personnel, Catholic missions also came over very early on. Initially, it was believed that Native Americans, especially the Aztecs, could only be converted through force. Eventually, people began to criticize this treatment. People like the priest de las Casas argued that conversion should only be done through peaceful measures and not at the point of a sword. Some people, like Sepulveda, argued that Native Americans were savage and childlike, and they needed to be treated with force because of their lower nature. Eventually, de las Casas wins over the Pope. Pope Paul III issued new rules for Native Americans. For example, he issued that Native Americans were human beings and should be treated with respect. Seems pretty straightforward. Still, most of the mistreatment and cruelty towards Native Americans are just going to continue on throughout the century.